The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services. vCISO Services' mission and calling is to provide quality cybersecurity and information security consulting and expertise for small and mid-sized businesses. While they are a leading provider of qualified and experienced virtual CISOs, they offer much more. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer. Welcome to the virtual CISO moment. David Primor joins us today. He is the CEO and founder of Cynomi. So Cynomi is a company that addresses a critical gap in mid-market cyber protection by creating and executing a cyber and compliance strategy for companies with insufficient or no personnel. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Greg, and hi, everybody, and thanks for hosting me.
I'm very happy to have you here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Would like to hear how and why you started in cyber and what led you eventually to creating Cynomi.
Okay, it's a perfect question because not everybody depends on us. So I born in Israel. I live in Israel, and everybody in Israel has to be in the army. And I found myself in the intelligence for many years, doing cyber intelligence, SIGINT, and of course cyber. I'm lieutenant colonel from that unit, so handling cyber from different perspective, I would say, not cyber protection, but I cannot talk a lot about what
Of
I did.
course. Right.
But for me, it was a very unique experience. I'm electrical engineer by my profession, so I had um, several teams of engineers, software development, who's doing development in the field of cyber. Um, some people could say that I was a little bit bored, so I decided to take my family to go abroad to Switzerland, and then to do my PhD in signal processing at the big particle accelerator at CERN, Geneva. So
Okay.
I've been there about almost 3 years doing my PhD, developing algorithms to find the Higgs boson, which was actually considered to be the God particle. So it was
Yes.
nothing to do with cyber, although I remember that there was one big incident in the experiment, which makes the experiment delayed by about 2 years. And many people say that it could be a cyber attack.
Really?
Other people say it's God that prevented this experiment because everybody was there were groups that were really afraid from what will be in black holes, etc., etc. So
Yeah, I
I've been
remember that conversation that they're gonna create a black hole right there in Switzerland. So
yeah. So no black hole. It's in Switzerland. So I've been there. I back to Israel. I finished my PhD, and then again the army convinced me to stay a little bit longer. Then I had a privilege to establish the Cybersecurity Authority in Israel under Prime Minister office. So I actually built the technology division that develops the threat intelligence, incident response from national perspective. And this is for me the moment that I really understand cyber protection and not the other sides of cyber. Understand the SMB big crisis in Israel and the rest of the world, trying to help Israel as a nation to help the SMB and critical infrastructure to be better protected. So I've been there about 3 years, and then I decided that enough with the government, enough with the Israel Defense Forces. I want to try and to build something myself. I did several experiments, and after about 1.5 years, I established Cynomi with a very good friend of mine, actually in the UK, and since then, for the last 3 years, we are enjoying Cynomi.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the story. I also love the fact that yeah, I'm prior military here in the United
Mm.
States myself, and I often wish that we had some sort of a program like you have over there of compulsory service for
Yeah,
everybody. I think that it gives a sense of what I would say skin in the game. You kind of understand a little bit more. Everybody is helping to protect the nation. So
yeah.
appreciate that. Well, very good. When we come back in 30 seconds, I want to get into what you think is the biggest right now cybersecurity threat to small and mid-sized businesses and how potentially Cynomi can help with that. So we'll be right back. Bitdefender provides cybersecurity solutions with leading security, efficacy, performance, and ease of use to small and medium businesses, mid-market enterprises, and consumers. Guided by a vision to be the world's most trusted cybersecurity solutions provider, Bitdefender is committed to defending organizations and individuals around the globe against cyber attacks to transform and improve their digital experience. I have to learn to not take such a big gulp of coffee at the break. It's hot and I can still feel it going down. So, David, what is in your view, what is one of the most significant threats that small and mid-sized businesses from a cybersecurity perspective face today?
Can I pick two?
You can pick many.
So there are really many, but I think cyber attacks and mainly ransomware is
Hmm.
something that many of the SMBs have to be handled, and it's not a question of if; it's a question of when. So this is one, I think, a very big risk for SMBs, and the other is actually be able to be complied to the highly regulation. And I I understand that nationwide or the government has to enforce regulation to force SMBs to be better protected. So I understand it from the other side why it's so important. But I think now, if you want to be successful in business, the SMB, you must take uh, and make lots of effort not to be attacked. This is the first thing. But the second thing is to show that you are protected, that you have the right security hygiene to face attacks so other companies could make business with you and could trust you. I think this is the two main things. First to survive, and then to make business.
Yeah. So you mentioned about good cyber hygiene. What would be some recommendations for small and mid-sized businesses watching this right now, as far as what they can do if they're starting with nothing and they just realize, well, we've been very fortunate that we haven't been attacked yet. We've never seen ransomware that we know of. What are a few things that they can do?
Oh, um, maybe let's think about what big companies are doing, and
Okay,
then
that's a
go
good
to
approach.
small companies. So big companies usually have some expert called Chief Information Security Officer who understand uh, what are the attacks, how what are the best practices to be protected. He continuously understand what should be done and create a plan, cybersecurity plan, understand the posture, understand the risk of the company, and understand what should be done. When we established Cynomi, we understood that this is the something which small and medium businesses they don't have it, and when they try to be protected, they ask the same question as you: What should I do? And I think if you tell them, okay, you should install an EDR, you should have password policy, and then okay, you have to do something with the HR, something with the servers. Okay, what about remote? What about network? What about awareness? And I will continue telling a lot of um, uh, tens and hundred things that you could do,
Hmm.
and it's really difficult to say what is more important than the others. And I
Right.
think what is really important is to understand what is your company, what are the things that you want to protect, what are the gaps, and then to understand what is the priorities and the things that you have to do. And you must understand the whole picture in order to decide what are the essential things to do, and it's different from one company to another. So I cannot say, okay, if you don't have anything, install an EDR or XDR or NDR or other EDR. I don't know.
They'll come
And
up with more letters before
yeah,
we know it.
yeah. So I think there is a major role to the directors of the company that they don't understand cybersecurity, and to understand what to do in cybersecurity, you need some kind of professional or role within the company to understand what is cybersecurity and what is need to be done, and then have some kind of consultancy. It could be, if you are medium-sized company, it could be within the company, but in many cases, it is your MSP, it is your MSSP, it could be your virtual CISO consultant, someone who understands cybersecurity, could understand your business, risks, assets, and then decide what are the best tools and procedures that you should take in order to be protected. And then it is a journey. You should understand what to do in the first step and then to continue, because attacks are continuously evolving. And the use of AI by attackers
Mm.
make it really, really easy to
Hmm.
attack. Just think about, I think for the last few months, it's easy for us to understand AI because almost everybody use ChatGPT,
Right.
and it's changed the world.
It
So
has.
imagine creating attacks using some kind like ChatGPT. So easy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's certainly, I think that there's some risk associated with ChatGPT outside of just, but it's a tool when all is said and done. And to your point, I'll always like to use the word holistically. That businesses need
Mhm,
to have a holistic approach, whether you're large or you're small, and you can't go with just like a one tool fits all whack-a-mole type thing. Like
mhm.
you said, put in your favorite EDR or something DR, and then you're all good. That's sort of an extension of the. Um, I think maybe about 10 years ago, one of my unfavorite sayings were businesses that would say, "Well, I have a firewall, so I'm secure." It's like, no, 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 it doesn't work that way. So I know how we first connected through Cynomi, and I know that you work with virtual chief information security officers, which are folks that help small and mid-sized businesses with some of that. Well, how does, and particularly for me, and I've purposely held off doing a lot of research on Cynomi because I wanted to ask here, how does that platform help small and mid-sized businesses with or without a virtual CISO?
Yeah. So we are trying to do two things. First, let's talk about the vision. So our vision is that every company should have a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, or a virtual one.
I would agree to that.
Okay, okay. But it's not easy
Right.
because it's very expensive if you want to have a CISO in your company, and sometimes it's also expensive if you want to hire one from external. We all understand that if we want to have all companies should have virtual CISO, so all consultancies and all MSPs, MSSPs should support that. Currently, there are two main problems. First, it's a manual job. Even if you are an expert, most of your work is done by Excel sheets and your knowledge. Maybe now you will use ChatGPT, but
Yeah, well, now you can't do that because you can't send out confidential information on
yeah,
ChatGPT.
yeah,
Samsung found out about that the hard way,
yeah,
so
yeah, I agree. So one problem is the time consuming and the fact that it's manual processes. And as a virtual CISO or someone who is a virtual CISO, this term is misleading because it's virtual CISO, but actually it's a real person that provided CISO as a service, and he's very limited with his time or her time. So this is one problem. The other problem is that not all service providers have the knowledge how to provide, and
Yes.
you need to be professional, but there is a lack of professionals in the market. And that's what Cynomi trying to do. Cynomi tried to take the knowledge, the cybersecurity knowledge, to put it within the platform in a very friendly way that ITA experts and security experts, which are not CISO, but they have some knowledge, could use the system and give, using the algorithms that we have in order to give the best answers and recommendation to the companies. This is one thing. And the other thing is automation, to do things that usually takes you a lot of time, the hard work, the questionnaires that you're asking, the policies that you are creating, the recommendation that we are creating. We are doing all of these things in an automatic way. So we help you to serve not 10 customers, let's say, but 50, because many
Okay.
of the things will be automatic, and we save you about 80% of your time. So you could serve more customers and having more staff in your MSP, MSSP to provide the same type of service by more people to more customers. So actually, we help MSPs, MSSPs to scale and to provide virtual CISO as a commodity, which was not exist in the past.
I like that. And I like that from the perspective of one of the things that I've seen evolving in the virtual CISO space is that it used to be, when it first started, that it was folks like me that were CISOs beforehand and decided that they wanted to give that, not give, but provide that experience to small, mid-sized businesses on a fractional type basis because they had no other way to do it. But now you've got a proliferation of people calling themselves virtual CISOs that not necessarily actually have done the CISO work, and I like to refer to those. I refer to those as virtual ISOs, so virtual information security officers. Maybe they're a tier or two down in steps, and I think that we're seeing that split here. So it sounds like that even more so than anything that the Cynomi would fit great into the space of people that might be thinking about offering virtual ISOs, and that way, to your point. It could reduce the overhead cost of having the actual person performing all of the duties all the times and having the knowledge of it as well. Is that kind of a fair statement if I'm understanding the platform?
Yeah, actually, I didn't know the term ISO. I always trying to use the term CISO, but I totally agree with you that you should not be a chief information security officer. You are virtual information security officer, and
Hmm.
it's a good term, and I will use that.
Well,
So
I charge $5 every time it's used, so.
okay,
No, and actually, I think part of where the term comes from is that here in the States, in the banking arena, they have a position that's called the information security officer, which I think, by the way, as a side note, that they did it right because there's very rarely a chief information security officer that
Mm,
actually reports to the CEO or the board of directors. And I wish I could attribute this to the correct person who said it, but I stole it like 15 years ago. If you don't report to the CEO or the C-suite or the board of directors, rather, you're a chief of nothing. There's no reason for the C. But the CISO does need to be able to have that deep risk management experience and be able to talk with the board on such things. Whereas the ISO, if you will, in some cases, like in the finance world, the ISO actually reports to the CIO and therefore is more embedded down. So, um, I like this from the perspective that the security needs for small and mid-sized business market is constantly evolving, and the more that we can find ways to be very creative with the service offering. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the Cynomi platform. Is it SaaS based or is it
Yeah,
on site?
yeah.
It's
So
SaaS
it's,
based.
it's completely SaaS based, and we used two different approaches to collect data. So one is we call it subjective, which is the set of questionnaires, and then objectives, which collect data from scanning, from external scanning, internal scanning, and we can connect to other scanners if you have like Nessus or taking information from Microsoft. Sorry.
That's a new customer right there.
Yeah, it's the salesperson. Yeah. So yeah, so it takes the two types of data, the objective and subjectives, and create what we call the cyber posture, understanding what is your hygiene, and then automatically create your strategy. The strategy is a set of policies or set of cyber domains recommendation or requirements, and each requirement is translated to a task. And every task is prioritized. So we create some kind of prioritization and helping the MSSPs to create a plan, a roadmap for cybersecurity for the customers. So this is the basic things that we are doing. We generating reports. So you could, as a in the company, you could present the cyber posture and the cyber plan to the board of directors, to the CEO every month, and give the MSP MSSP the ability to track the plan to continuously improve the cyber posture and to suggest other things to or tools and procedures to enhance the cybersecurity and of course to sell more product to the customer.
Now, let me just be clear about something. I'm a little confused, but I want to make sure I'm clear. Is this, are you directing the product towards MSPs and virtual CISOs, or can a small business go out and get the product directly and be able to use it?
No, we are channel only company. So
Gotcha.
we sell to consultancies, to MSPs, MSSPs, and of course they are giving the companies the ability to access the platform, to see the progress, to get the reports. But usually, since most of the SMBs mid market they don't understand cybersecurity in a way that they can handle the platform, they need some professionals.
That was going to be my next question. If you were going direct to them, it's like, well, how are they able to actually do this? And because you still have to have some sort of holistic understanding of security.
Yeah. So they don't. But we help the channel to do it in a professional way, in a standard way. What I didn't say that we are, since Cynomi has its own framework, we are mapping all the tasks and recommendations that we have to the different frameworks like ISO, like NIST, CSF, CMMC, HIPAA, etc. So if you as a company have to be complied to any type of framework or regulation, Cynomi will help you to do both ways, to be protected, because we understand that compliance is not necessarily cybersecurity. It helps, but it's not the only thing that you have to do. So looking at the two different point of views from what I have to do to be protected, what I have to do to be compliant is very important. And the virtual CISO or virtual ISO responsible for both. So they, as I said before, you asked me what are the biggest challenges. So one, to be protected, cybersecurity, not compliance, and then to be able to demonstrate that you are that you are protected. So these are the compliance and that something that everybody understand in a common space.
Yeah, I don't think it goes too far with auditors when they ask you a question. Are you compliant with this particular thing? And you just say, of course I am. Yeah, you got to actually back that up with something. Well, let me ask you, if someone, an MSP or a virtual CISO or virtual ISO is interested in potentially partnering, how can they get a hold of you to schedule a demo and learn more about the product?
It's very easy. Just use our website, www.cynomi.com, and there you could learn lots of things about Cynomi, to see some testimonials, to see partners, and of course, to schedule a demo.
Okay, well, great. Well, I'm going to pivot and ask you a very important question to me that's outside of cybersecurity, because I know cybersecurity and being an entrepreneur, building a business, all of that can be extraordinarily stressful. I know that because I'm in the same boat. I'm not building software, but I am a small business owner. What is one thing that you do to help decompress from the stresses of cyber and being an entrepreneur?
I'm doing two things.
Yeah, I just need to ask two things. Okay, from
Yeah,
now
yeah,
on.
yeah. Although in the army it's always three, but maybe because I'm an entrepreneur, it's only two. So first, I like sport, so I'm trying to do sport early in the morning, and I say that the morning belongs to me. Then the rest of the day belongs to Cynomi. So
Okay.
I run and cycle. I used to run marathons, but not anymore. I don't have the time for that. And when I want to relax, I play a piano. I don't have much
Oh,
time, but mostly rock and jazz and things that make me forget everything. And I must say that the great ideas about new features for Cynomi, they're coming along the running or when I play. So it's not completely separated from Cynomi, but it's make my brain relaxed, and then thoughts about other things can come out.
I had a professor in my undergraduate days. I was a mechanical engineer at the time, student at the University of Buffalo, and he would always listen to some classical music when he was creating an exam, and the difficulty of the exam was based on what he was listening to. He would kind of half joke about it, and I believe it was Mozart, that if he was listening to Mozart, we were in deep, deep trouble. So, but I love it. I think you're the first one. I've had folks that have said guitar playing, but I haven't had anyone say playing piano. And I'm totally on board with regards to sports. I'm actually from cycling. I like doing Zwift, with the indoor cycling, and was actually on it for about 40 minutes this morning. So that's a kind of cool thing too. You get to cycle with folks from all over the world and all that. Well, future plans. What are some future plans you'd like to talk about?
Cynomi, Cynomi, Cynomi.
I was good. Okay, so two or three. Okay, all Cynomi.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what are some of the future plans for Cynomi
So
that you
so
can
so
talk about? You know.
yeah, yeah. So having a much bigger operation in the States. So currently we have our first salespersons. In the beginning, we did everything from Israel. So now we have some initial operation in the States. Will help us to visit more customers, to be personal. So building Cynomi to hit many more customers and to be able to serve as many MSPs, cyber consultancies that we can, and help the world to be protected. So this is from business perspective, but I must say that I enjoy the journey.
Mhm.
I learn new things. I enjoy speaking with customers. I enjoy understanding the risks and the challenges. And I hope that Cynomi could help the community to be better protected.
That's awesome. I love your story. I love your mission. I'm very much myself looking forward now. I will get on the website to schedule a demo and learn more about the product. So, David,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you all for listening.
And everybody, stay secure.